Well, we made it. I managed to look at all of the Crash games. All of them. All of them. All of them! Anyway, I wanted to give this series a proper send-off by ranking all of the Crash games I reviewed from worst to best, in my opinion. This video is going to go through game by game, and if there's anybody out there who is a JuniorNitro 24 veteran, not that you'd want to be, you already know which one is number 1. And for anybody wondering, no. Crash Boom Bang being excluded will not affect this list at all, as it would have just been placed at the bottom. Also, I'm not using some tier list thing that everybody else has already beaten to death. So with all that being said, let's go through the series one last time, as I rank every Crash Bandicoot game I reviewed from worst to best, in my opinion. Let's begin with number 16. When fans heard about Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon getting a crossover game, they imagined the game to be like long lost brothers finally reuniting. That would have been much better than what we got. What we got was two of possibly the worst GBA games that were both minigame collections. One of them was Crash Purple, and it takes the 16th spot on this list. What else can I say? It's terrible. The controls are crap, the minigames are crap, the bosses are crap, and the task of collecting all Crash Purple and Spyro Orange trading cards in order to fight Cortex and Ripto is ultra crap. Do yourself a favor and never even mention this game. It doesn't deserve it. Next game, please. It's sad that we see this game before the other GBA titles, but that's just how bad this game is. At number 15 is Crash Tag Team Racing, the first of 3 games to be developed by Radical Entertainment. Needless to say, it flopped. Hard. The comedy in this game was aimed towards kids, hence the constant farting and burping, but as a young adult, which is what the majority of the Crash fanbase is, it feels like a big fuck you. The graphics looked horrendous, the soundtrack was irritating as fuck with a couple exceptions, the controls were off, the platforming was rancid, and the characters, especially Crash, were far, far beyond fucking annoying. If you're a little kid, sure, go play the game. If you're an adult, no, skip it. It's not worth it. Even though I beat it 100%, somebody call a therapist. Coming in at number 14 is Crash Bandicoot: The Huge Adventure. It was a pretty small game by Crash's standards, with only 20 crystals and 4 bosses, if you don't count the Mega Mix chase scene. The other real problem was that this game was just a collection of 2D ports of levels from the original PS1 titles, which is a bit disappointing. Thankfully, Vicarious Visions decided to get creative with this game's sequel. Speaking of which... rounding out the GBA titles is Crash Bandicoot and Tranced. It was essentially the same game as Huge Adventure, but with more original levels, new bosses, and of course the luxury of not having to collect the relics to get the true ending. I will say that this game is the best choice out of the other 2 GBA games, however, this game is still not that great. A lot of problems I have with Huge Adventure in terms of controls are still present here. Either way, for as good and original as this game was, in that Cortex was not even in the game, I would still skip it. Well, that's it for the GBA titles. Now let's continue the list with number 12. But first, go get a snack, get up and stretch, or go wash your hands. With the current circumstances, the third option should be a 200 times a day thing. I'm not saying this game is entirely bad, but compared to everything else, it's pretty weak. Number 12 is Crash Nitro Kart, an attempt to be CTR's successor. To put it simply, the racing felt super clunky, especially the anti-gravity sections, and the controls were not the greatest. In terms of the game's graphics, this is honestly one of the best looking games in the series. However, if you can't mix tight controls with a kart racer, you have to sacrifice the stellar visuals, which is what Vicarious Visions failed to do. People can get too critical with this game, I have seen that happen before, because while it is an average racing game, that's just it. Racing games should never be considered average. Ultimately, you're better off playing CTR. If I made this list when I first started making reviews, this game would have easily been number 16. But I have grown more mature, and I can rightfully put Wrath of Cortex in the number 11 spot. Like CNK, it's not necessarily bad, but it isn't good either. When they emulate Warped, it becomes a pretty decent game. When they try something new, however, that's when the game plummets. Not to mention, the graphics look really gross, and the controls are a bit finicky. And of course, the vehicles. If there's one thing this game has going for it though, it's the incredible soundtrack. I have used OSTs from this game countless times in my videos because they're so damn good. I highly recommend you look it up and give it a listen. But other than that, there's really nothing else here that's worth your time. I like this game, to a certain extent. Number 10 goes to Crash Twinsanity. When it comes to this game, you either love it or hate it. You can't go in the middle or else the Crash community will dismantle you. I'm going to be the brave boy here and say I like Twinsanity for being funny. This game has some solid controls, the graphics look stunning for a 2004 PS2 game, and the story, while short, is good. The soundtrack is unique, but unique is not synonymous with good. It just sounds good because Spiral Mouth had a whole bunch of filters put on them. Some tracks are pretty good, but most of it is pretty forgettable. I fucking love this! Wait, I said that? Huh. But do I think it's still worth your time? Definitely. A surprisingly decent game in the series. Number 9 is Crash Mind Over Mutant, the direct sequel to Titans. While the game did improve the many flaws that Titans suffered, this came at a price. The first half of the game was plagued with so much backtracking. However, the co-op was still fun, with Coco being playable, the beating up NPCs and jacking Titans is still addicting, the soundtrack still kicks serious ass, and the controls were solid. Do I recommend picking up this game? In all honesty, yes. It may not be a game for Crash fans, but it is good. Again, a game that is worth your time. It's just so low because other games exist. Number 8 goes to Crash of the Titans, the game that ruined everyone's childhood. This was the beginning of the reboot, and some of the changes they made, I'm honestly okay with, but Tiny Tyson, I am not okay with. The voice acting in this game makes it funnier than it has any right to be. One minor complaint would be Uka Uka's design. There is absolutely zero resemblance to his old look, and it's a real shame. Also, Coco looks like shit. Putting those nitpicks aside, I did enjoy my time with Titans, and I think you will as well. Yes, it's just the original trilogy remastered from the ground up, but that doesn't mean it's not good. It is. The Unsane Trilogy comes in at number 7, and yes, I'm counting it as one game. This game helped put Crash Bandicoot back on the map. It is a shame though, because VV didn't put a whole lot of effort into it. However, their doubts were immediately put to rest when they saw how many people bought, played, and loved it, myself included. It got a second release the following year on Xbox One, PC, and Switch, with the PS4 version getting a massive update that adds the brand new level Future Tense, exponentially reduces the load times, allows you to skip the VV logo, and puts Dingodile's defeated line back in Warped. Why it was absent in the first place, your guess is as good as mine. This trilogy of remasters is definitely worth your time, however, I don't think it's something you need to drop everything and buy anymore. But that's a story for another video. For now, on to the next game.
Wegmans is racist against tangerines.
Our first PS1 title on the list. At number 6 is Crash Bash. While this game is fun to play with friends, playing this game by yourself is not something you should do. This game was as fun as it was fucking brutal. The difficulty suddenly gets really tough in the second Warp Room of Adventure mode. Newcomers beware. It's taken me a whopping 12 years to get the 200% completion, and it felt so good when it finally happened. If you have friends, you can definitely kill time with the fun minigames. Otherwise, I'd give it a pass. The game that started it all. Number 5 goes to Crash Bandicoot. While mildly outdated, it's still relaxing to come back to this game. This game was as fun as it was fucking brutal. I feel deja vu all of a sudden. Crash Bandicoot was all about waiting, taking your time. If you did that, this was a relatively easy game. However, the moment you lose your patience, you will know hate and only hate for the rest of your time with this game. The controls were awkward, the soundtrack was good, and the bosses were boring. But for a first attempt, not bad. Because it is the first game in the series, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, which makes the game all the more worth your time. Number 4 goes to Crash Bandicoot Warped. This game served as the finale to the original trilogy, and it did really well. Yeah, Naughty Dog went a little too far with the vehicles, but majority of them did control well, so if anything, they added to the experience. The controls were tight, the soundtrack was awesome, and the graphics look amazing. Definitely pick up Warped if you haven't already. A faithful remaster of my favorite game of all time. Number 3 is Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. Originally just going to be a remake of CTR, Beanox went above and beyond by giving us every character from the racing games and more, every track, battle arena, and mode, and kart from both CTR and CNK, and even extra stuff like tag team racing karts and Grand Prix that gave you even more stuff. More tracks, more characters, more karts, more stickers, more skins. This no longer feels like a remaster. It feels like its own game. Sure, the tracks are remastered and the adventure mode is the same, but it still feels like old mixed with new. CTRNF is without a doubt worth the purchase. Number 2 goes to Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back. This game was absolutely amazing. It had tight controls, wonderful levels, memorable characters, and not the greatest story, but who cares? Could do without the final boss though. Without a doubt, Crash 2 is the must-have for any Crash fan, any platforming fan, any gaming fan. If you haven't already, go buy it. And now we're down to one game left. You all have narrowed it down by now, and most of you already knew before you even clicked on this video. Here is number 1. Admit it, you saw this coming. Taking the number 1 spot on the list is Crash Team Racing. This game is amazingly tremendous, with tons of playable characters from the trilogy, tracks at the various locations with new places to explore, a multiplayer that you could kill hours in, and a soundtrack that really gets your adrenaline going. I'll never forget the first time I played this game. I'm so glad Crash Team Racing was my introduction to gaming, and there's no game I'd rather have to be my favorite game of all time. And with that, the list is complete. In addition to asking you what your list would look like, I'm going to pin a comment asking you guys if the first game you ever played is also your favorite game of all time. Let's get a thread going. Thank you all so much for watching this video, as well as the Crash reviews. Alright, so I wanted to take these next couple of minutes or so to go a little bit off script so I can be a little bit genuine with my final thoughts about this series. So, the Crash Bandicoot series, it's my introduction to gaming. I mean, this game right here, CTR, first game I ever played. I'm so glad it was. I absolutely love it. I love the Crash series. I was honestly in shock at how fairly decent Titans and Mutant were. And, you know, some of these games, you know, not a lot of people like Twinsanity, but I found it to be okay. Wrath of Cortex is another universally hated game, so people say, but I still thought that game was, I mean, okay. Like, kind of okay, but not okay enough to really sit down and actually play again. One of those once-a-year games. But yeah, Wrath was okay. Nitro Kart, not the greatest, but it was still okay. What am I forgetting? Oh yeah, Tag Team Racing, no thanks. The GBA games, no thanks. Boom Bang, absolutely not. GBA Titans, no. DS Titans, maybe. GBA Nitro Kart, that is a fucking blast, and nobody can tell me otherwise. DS Mutant, right down there with Boom Bang. I know we have mobile games for Crash Bandicoot that I haven't talked about, but if you really want to know about mobile Crash Bandicoot games, Square Eye Jack already did a video on that years ago. Go watch that, because I'm not doing those anytime soon. I don't have enough time to do all the research that he did to get all the games and get most of them to work. Am I forgetting something? I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah! So, I had plans on revisiting the original trilogy, and in fact I was actually going to, I was going to make it a 3-part story arc based around one of my friends from college taking every game from my collection except for Crash 1, which would kick off part 1 to the arc. And that would ultimately lead to me re-reviewing Crash 1. Because the first time I did it, we don't talk about that review. So I was hoping to work on this at some point this year, and in fact, this was all typed up and printed before the Sonic Unleashed review and before the channel hit 1,000 subscribers. So I actually had this in plan. This 3-part series was planned to be episodes 20... Hold on. Titans was episode 26. Mutant would have been 27. This would have been 28. So these 3 videos would have been... Well, no, I would have to hold off. I would have to hold off this list. Yeah, I would have had to hold off this list. But regardless. So, yeah, I had Titans planned to be episode 26, which happened. Then Mutant was supposed to be episode 27, and then I was originally going to have this 3-part series to be episodes 28, 29, and 30, and this would have wrapped up season 3 of John's Reviews. However, a couple of things happened. Number one, the channel hit 1,000 subscribers, so I had to, you know, do Sonic Unleashed, which I didn't really promise because I tried not to tease it as much, but a couple people have already figured it out, so congrats to those who figured it out already. So that happened. And number two, the fucking coronavirus. Yeah, and the reason I say that is because those friends of mine from college that I wanted to film this series with, they all live up in Niagara Falls. And next to New York City, Niagara Falls was one of the most affected places in New York State. So, yeah, I'm gonna put a pin in that. But yeah, I mean, other than that, we're done. We're done with the Crash games. I know there's Boom Bang. I know there's handheld versions of Nitro Kart, Titans, and Mutant. And I'm sure I'll take a look at them at some point, but not right now. I want to officially say goodbye to the Crash Bandicoot series. And, yeah, I mean, yeah, this was the series that started John's reviews. Man, we've come a long way. We really have. But with that, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoyed all of the reviews. And thank you everybody for watching. If you did enjoy today's video, then be sure to drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel. I want to see that check mark next to my name. Shit, we never got Coco's battery.